Raphael, and I've got 26 days before I leave for Miami. That's right, I'm going from Huntington Beach, California to Miami on my bicycle. And yesterday I had the great pleasure of interviewing Andrew Skinner and David Behar, both who are associated with the triumphfoundation.org. So click on the link below and check them out. Take a look at their website, look at all the resources that they offer, the programs that are available, and the community that exists. It's really, really awesome. For more, take a look at the interview that's following up right now. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining me. My name is Raphael, and I have the pleasure to be joined by David Behar and Andrew Skinner. Andrew Skinner is one of the founders for the Triumph Foundation. It's an organization that provides resources, provides all sorts of information for the people who have suffered spinal cord injury and stuff like that. We're going to go ahead and talk about a little bit about that. David is a friend of Andrew's and the Triumph Foundation, and he's going to contribute also to this. So I just want to start by asking a few questions from both of you. So Andrew, number one, the Triumph Foundation, I think it's amazing. It's incredible, all the services that it provides, not just services, but the community that it's been able to create and maintain. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about, how you became involved with the Triumph Foundation. I know you're one of the founders, but if you could talk a little bit about yourself and Triumph.
Yeah, well, thanks, Raphael. It's fun to connect like this and share our conversations with everybody else out there that's been following your journey. And I'm so stoked about your bike ride and excited to follow you. And I already have, man. It's really cool to see how gains you've already made in your preparation and just self-development and strength, and really epitomize the spirit of Triumph Foundation, the warrior spirit. So Triumph Foundation got started in 2008. My wife and I started the organization. I had gotten injured in 2004. I suffered a spinal cord injury and kind of a freak snowboarding accident. I was just goofing off in front of a cabin, so I wasn't hot dogging it on the slopes or doing anything too reckless. I didn't fall on my head. Wasn't doing backflips, but I fell the wrong or right way, however you want to look at it, and I broke my 4th, 5th, and 6th cervical vertebrae in my neck, and I was completely paralyzed from the neck down in an instant. And I was 24 years old. I thought that I had the whole world figured out and I was invincible. And my reality took a sharp detour that I never saw coming. And I was very fortunate that, number one, I had a family that was there for me, not only when I got hurt, to dig me out of the snow and call 911 and get me emergency services and helicoptered to the hospital. But they were also there for me as a shoulder to cry on, to pray for me, as a punching bag at times, and just there for me throughout my healing process, and never gave up on me, and sometimes believed in me more than I believed in myself. And so I was really fortunate that I had that. But I also had a wonderful network of people that had gotten injured before me that were there visiting me in the hospital when I was doing my rehabilitation, that gave me hope for what was possible. They had suffered injuries like me and showed me that, hey, yes, you can relearn how to use your hands, even though my hands are impaired. And yes, you can still use a wheelchair, and yes, you can still drive, and yes, you can still feed yourself, and all of these things that were so far out of reach in the very beginning when I was barely able to breathe on my own. They motivated, inspired, and encouraged me to work my ass off to be the best me I could possibly be. And I always just felt a sense of that I had to pay it forward. I had to help other people in similar situations. And so to make a very long story short, Raphael, after I worked on myself for a good 4 or 5 years, just focused on my own recovery, on my own rehabilitation. I found myself in a place in my life in 2008 where after I relearned how to do a lot of activities of daily living independently, got married, started driving a car, started working, had a career. I wanted to pay that forward and kind of felt called to serve, felt like God had a purpose for me that was, something I needed to do with my life. And so started Triumph Foundation in 2008 and never dreamed it was going to become a job, never dreamed it was going to become anything more than me just visiting the local rehabilitation hospital that I was at. And I'm sure we'll get to it, but in some ways I created a monster, and kind of was the spark that really just took off and really impacted thousands of people. And I get a lot of credit for what a lot of others are out there doing on the name and waving the banner of Triumph Foundation. So,
wow, I think that's fantastic. So 13 years. So
yeah, so Triumph's been around. Yeah, that's right. 13 years.
wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. I think about, I mean, how much can be done in 13 years, right? I can only imagine what it was like when you first began getting people involved. Because I know that nonprofits are notoriously difficult to start, not so much because people are not in favor of the cause, but it's hard to get people to help build it, right? Like everybody's got their own lives and they all think they're volunteering. So that's a huge, phenomenal challenge. So I congratulate you just being able to put that together and get people to work. That's that's amazing.
Yeah, I've been really fortunate to have some wonderful people be drawn in to join us. Our lifeblood is volunteers, and the same way I felt like I was kind of called to help other people, and it was something that I needed to do for my own soul and for others. I feel like a lot of other people, when they go through a catastrophic injury like I did, when they have something like that, experience in their life, they also kind of feel the same way as far as, hey, I want to give back. It meant so much to me when a Triumph ambassador came in and visited me, and I learned so much the hard way, and I want to make sure that the next person doesn't have to go through the struggles, puzzle their life together. And so, yeah, you're right, man. I mean, there's a lot of nonprofits out there that are here today and gone tomorrow, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But we've been very fortunate to have some lasting power in 13 years, but we're just getting started. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. You mentioned volunteers, and so David, can you talk a little bit about how you became involved with Triumph, and what you've been doing? I know you've been helping me with cycling questions. I sent him, I don't know how many photos of bikes that I should buy, and he was like, no, this is going to give you a problem. This is going to give you a problem. But yeah, David, so how did you become involved with Triumph?
About a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I guess 2.5 years ago, I had a friend that had a bike accident. So riding a bike early in the morning, and basically car didn't see her in the sun and hit her, and then she ended up ending up in a halo, and the whole rehab and all of that process. And I got exposed to Triumph because they came out and did a fundraiser for her. And I met Andrew, and I met Walter, and I met some of the other Triumph ambassadors, and I was just mesmerized because it takes a lot to go through that kind of injury and come out the other side and realize that there is still a life and how to actually make the most of it. And Triumph is sitting there saying, we're going to make the most of it. And they showed me parts of what they do, and then they showed me more, and I'm like, wow. So I got involved. I was a cyclist. I'm a cyclist. I enjoy that. So I got involved with hand cycling, but anything that Andrew throws my way, I take a serious look. I've done over the line baseball. I've done other things, opportunities to get out and meet the community. And I get more out of it than I think they do. And I know that's kind of a two-way street, but I really enjoy watching everyone enjoy themselves and learn and participate and overcome the obstacles, real and imagined in their head sometimes, of the things they can and can't do. And I'm mesmerized every time I interact with them.
I think that's amazing. It's so true. It is true that you really do get a better feeling, I believe, when you give something, when you give of yourself to others. That it's better to give than it is to receive. So now I know that Triumph has a lot of programs. So you've got like newly injured support. You've also got like support groups, grants and equipment, adaptive recreation. So Andrew, can you talk to us a little bit about the programs that Triumph offers?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the heart, the cornerstone of what we do is visiting people when they're newly injured. I mean, no one is prepared for a catastrophic injury like a spinal cord injury. So people are, lost, and they have no idea where to turn, and they have, being asked to make decisions on things that they've never considered, and everybody is just completely, their life is shattered. And so Triumph's kind of on the front line, some of the first responders, and going into those hospital rooms to offer hope and to give them encouragement and resources, to let them know how to go about kind of puzzling their life back together after it was shattered, and rebuilding, and kind of answering questions. And we can speak candidly in ways that doctors and healthcare and nurses and insurance can't. And so what we do is we visit people, and we bring a care pack with us. And it's a basket or a backpack that's just full of resources that I wish someone would have told me about. Typically after someone gets hurt, you kind of touched on it, I think, earlier. People are given around 30 days of inpatient rehab, and then they're discharged from the hospital. And a lot of people haven't even got their minds wrapped around the fact that this is something that is somewhat permanent. I know for me, I spent 30 days in the ICU, and coming out of the ICU, I was still every night, and still sometimes to this day, hoping this is a bad nightmare, and wake up the next day and ta-da, I'm back. I got everything, all my return of function back. And sadly, the truth of the matter is, for most of us, miracles do happen, but most of us, it does take time for us to heal. And you really need to focus on what you do in physical and occupational therapy, and trying to do as much for yourself as you possibly can. And so the Heart Triumph Foundation, like I said, is visiting people when they're newly injured. We meet around 300 people per year, out those backpacks and baskets, and just try to help them. Let them know they're not alone, they're not reinventing the wheel, and we are kind of the continuum of care. Because, like I said, after they discharge from the hospital, when you're in the hospital, you have that nurse call light button. You can always tap that button, and you got someone to answer your questions. But they don't let you take that home with you. So when you go home, comes that nurse call light button for people to tap, to reach out, to connect. And so those care packs, and then the support groups, like you touched on, just giving people a sense of community and fellowship, where people can belong and get questions answered. And then we also help people with grants and equipment. A lot of people have inadequate health insurance and face tremendous financial hardship. People get hurt, and they're not ready for the medical bills that pile up. They didn't realize that the policy that they chose only covers, $2,000 in medical equipment, and the types of wheelchairs and other things that we require. The prices are astronomical, and so it really adds up fast. And so we try to fill in the gaps, the knowledge gaps with the care packs, and then the resource gaps with the grants, and helping people get necessary critical items. I came from a family that was from a construction background. And so when I needed things like ramps, they just built them. We needed to widen the doorway so my wheelchair could fit. We just handled it. Well, a lot of families don't have that. And so Triumph is out there trying to help people with home modifications, helping people get the proper wheelchair, a commode chair, whatever they might need, hand controls in a car. And we also repurpose equipment. So, you know, a lot of people get things and they outgrow them. Maybe they make an awesome recovery and start walking again. They may not need a wheelchair anymore. What do they do with it? You can give it to Triumph and we'll pay it forward. We'll give it to somebody else.
Yep.
Maybe somebody gets something and they, you know, are able to get a new one in 4 or 5 years. Again, we're kind of a loan closet repurposing program where we're helping a lot of folks get, you know, these items and saving their money so they can spend it on more important things like their rent and mortgage and caregivers and anything else that they want to, you know, pursue. And then kind of the third spoke on our circle of care is adaptive recreation. And, you know, this kind of stemmed out of us running the support groups, Raphael. We'd get a bunch of guys. It's mostly guys, ones that tend to take risks and get injured. I know David met us through Edie, and shout out to Edie. She's an amazing ambassador for Triumph now. And she was an avid cyclist, but to get to the point, you know, we get all these people in a support group and you start saying, wouldn't it be cool if, wouldn't it be fun if we did this? Wouldn't it be cool if we were something like that? And so rather than just listening and hearing about it, we said, well, let's go out there. Why don't we go snow skiing? Let's go snow skiing. And so Triumph Foundation started taking people out hand cycling, riding bicycles that are hand cranked, taking people out to play wheelchair sports like basketball or murder ball or quad rugby. My favorite, to, like I said, hand cycling, to snow skiing, to you name it, we do it. We're out there, you know, pushing the limits of our ability, and kind of brings us to one of the next spokes, which is really trying to build an inclusive community, and bringing people together. And so when people like David and people like you, Raphael, who come out, you know, it's not just sit on the sidelines and watch us do sports. It's, no, your butt's getting in the chair. Come on, you can ride the bikes too. We're all gonna participate and have fun together. And so that's kind of Triumph's main goal, is to build a place, a community, a family, Triumph family. Where everyone belongs. It doesn't matter who you are, what your background is, what your gender, ethnicity, economic class. We don't care. We love you. We just want to help you. And everybody's kind of grafted into this family tree. And so Triumph has tons of programs, and we're always thinking of more fun things to do. And it's all about changing hearts, changing lives, and just doing it together, man. Like I said, we've got an awesome group of thousands of people that have gotten involved over the years, and we're looking for more. So if there's anybody out there checking this out, come hang out.
Well, that's fantastic. And I think that Triumph is a true testament that regardless of where a person is in life or things that happen in their life, it's how we respond to them. And can we respond to them in a positive way? What can we make out of what has occurred? Because everybody takes hits. Everybody takes hits. And it's a matter of like, okay, well, it happened. So now where do we go from here? And can we continue to improve our lot? Can we continue to move forward and keep moving forward? And I think that when I see what happens within this particular community, it's amazing that you can have somebody who is, and as I mentioned in one of the introductory videos, will go through a process where they have thoughts that are completely out of character for them. This is not who they are. They are not this person who is, that's not who they are. And I think that's normal for anybody. But when they are presented with people like from Triumph that can say, hey, listen, I've been there, I know how this goes, and let me tell you what you can expect. I think it reawakens that person, and it even can bring out the best in them. And that being said, David, what is one of the most impressive things that you have seen participating with Triumph?
Oh, perfect segue, because what you just said is the examples that I hold on to in my heart, that I know why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
We were at one of the fundraisers for Triumph, and there was an individual that I was talking to, one of the Triumph ambassadors, Walter, and I was there with him. And this individual said that, let me set the stage. This is a formal event, a casino night style event, so Monte Carlo style event. He was dressed to the nines, and he's like, he's like, it's the first time in 2 years that I actually am not wearing sweats since my accident, that I actually got dressed up.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, he was dressed to the nines, just dark blue suit, three-piece suit, brown shoes. But always like, my girlfriend and I, it took forever to get dressed because it took a while. But he's like, for the first time, he's like, turned to Walter and said, Walter, I think I'm ready to learn how to drive with hand controls now.
Wow.
In 2 years, Walter's been pestering him to try and learn, and he was against it because in his head he was still stuck. All of a sudden, he got dressed up.
Yeah.
He felt like he was like, "Oh, there is something here," and he's like, "Walter, I'm ready." I'm like,
Wow.
that's it, encapsulated in a perfect example of someone who's stuck and realizes that they're stuck because of their mind, not because their body. And he's like, "Okay, cool, I'm ready, Walter, let's go." That I still play that entire scenario in my head over and over again. Just go, I love that story. I love how much the human spirit can be knocked down, can be punched in the face, and so I go, all right, let's go. How do I continue? And that's why I'm with Triumph, and that's why I volunteer, because I love this stuff. And I can tell you about stories of people on their first time on their hand cycle.
Yeah.
And the smile, and then you can't corral them back into the thing to give someone else a try because they just keep wanting to go.
Wow.
And Andrew's laughing because he knows exactly. So I think that's the example of overcoming. And I think hopefully we'll start talking about some of the stuff you're attempting to do, because you're on that same path.
Oh yeah. I think that's an amazing story. It reminds me of the story of the bamboo tree, right? And the story of the bamboo tree is, you plant it underground, and it's underground for years, and you water, you take care of it, and then the next thing you know, it grows like 30 feet in like 2 weeks. So did it take that bamboo tree 30 days to grow, or did it take 5 years? Where suddenly, just once it breaks through the ground, it's going to go. It's not going to stop. So yeah, I think that's a really amazing story. So back to Andrew. So you talked about like the coverage of insurance and how people's insurance coverages, and it's in America, it's so complicated. We don't have a healthcare system like they do in Britain, where it's pretty universal. Can you talk a little bit about what the insurance coverages, what you would recommend, or what the needs should be? Because nobody anticipates a catastrophic event, right? But it happens. So can you talk a little bit about that, Andrew?
Yeah. So, when people get hurt, it's the injury doesn't just impact them; it impacts everybody around them, and the family often is the one that bears a lot of the financial burden. So, we talk about touching the lives of 300 people every year. Well, you multiply that by 3 or 4 or 5, because that's their family too, that are often then faced with I'm going to say this, I don't say this lightly, but with the burden of having to care for their loved one. As something that is you're kind of bound to do in your family. It's what family does, and so they're usually there to help cover some of the medical expenses, get them to where they need to go, and just do the day-to-day activities and be there for the person, especially as that person gets hurt. They're more often than not able to go back to work like they once did. And so it's always, I don't know what's better, me meeting somebody when they're 13 or 17 or 20, in their 20s that gets hurt, or someone that I meet in their 50s or 60s, that gets hurt, because each situation presents its own difficulties. When you're young, you haven't had a chance to live your life and have those experiences yet. And so oftentimes you might be able to tap into your family network a little bit easier. That's kind of already there, that safety net. Don't have a lot of assets as far as being able to qualify for some of the government assistance programs out there. And so, there's pros and cons to that situation. Obviously, we never want to see any child, any youngster get injured. There's they have their own struggles. And then someone that's older and they obviously have had a lot of life experiences, man. They've been able to oftentimes, get to travel. They get to have relationships with, get married. They
Yeah.
children. They've got a wealth of life built up on underneath them and their in their heart and experience. But when something catastrophic happens, sadly, a lot of times, they were the breadwinner for the family, or they were the one that, saved their money and was, able to create some sort of retirement program for them. And they suddenly see that be, evaporated, covering all the things that they need. And so sends them to the poorhouse pretty quickly. And so it's tough, man. This injury is not just physical. It's also mental and emotional.
Right.
And it's also obviously financial in a lot of aspects. And so we try to offset those burdens as much as possible. I mean, I don't have a rich uncle or a daddy Warbucks that's out there writing big checks for Triumph.
We should contact Elon Musk.
Yeah, right. Started off, man, like I said, I just kind of felt like this was something I needed to do for my heart, and we'll figure out, the money will come. You keep your heart in the right place, the rest will kind of figure it out itself out. And so in the beginning, like I said, my family would help people with some of the home modifications. We grew too big and too many, and my dad's getting too old. Love you, Dad. To do those kinds of things on his own. And so what we started to do is fundraisers for people. We'd say, hey, Sally needs a commode chair. We're all going to go and to have this fundraiser for Sally. Or we talked about Edie a minute ago, or we talk about whoever, you slap a name on it, but we'd raise money for that person to pay for some sort of thing.
Yeah.
Thankfully, over time, Triumph has built up enough followers and enough credibility in the grant seeking world, and just saved our pennies to create a fund that we basically dedicate about $100,000 or more to give to people that have financial hardship, that have inadequate health insurance, to help them cover some of these basic things. I mean, we're not out there buying people the super duper flying wheelchair that top of the line, but we can help people get something that's basic, that's going to give them the freedom and independence, something that's lightweight, something that's meant for an active person, and help fill in some of those gaps. And so it's been really cool, because this injury sucks. It sucks on so many different levels. But like you kind of touched on, it's sometimes it's not what happens to you, but what you do about it. And that's the true test of someone's character. And you can get a help from somebody else to, get your mind right, because that's the first and most important step to recovery. Then you can start kind of figuring things out and chunking things down into, achievable goals, and those add up. And then, you never know the lives that you touch by just setting an example. David talks about little things like people getting dressed up, and David looking up to that person just because, hey, man, little things like that can be so meaningful, and so many people take it for granted. I get people that stop me in a grocery store, and it's kind of a sideways compliment of, I can't believe you're out. It's so nice to see you. And a lot of times they mean it lovingly, because they're like, I have a uncle or a nephew or a family member that does not go out. They isolate themselves. And here you are smiling, and here you are like existing. And I want to know their number. I want to know how I can contact them. I want to, spread this positive energy and just light a fire in people and show them what they are capable of doing, because I really believe that life-changing challenges happen to everybody. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's the truth. And so one of my favorite sayings is, it's not about how you fall, it's about how you land and if you get back up again. And so my injury was my fall, and my landing was my recovery. And what I do with the rest of my life is me getting back up again. And I've been very blessed. And want to help other people, find their way too.
I think that it's amazing. The name Triumph is adequately suited, to overcome, to be victorious, to be able to get beyond obstacles. Triumph, I think, is a fantastic name because it encapsulates the spirit of this community. So I think we're running a little bit close on our time, but I just want to add that I live in Orange County, Southern California, and it is the hub of the medical device industry. We've got, I don't want to name certain companies, but I'm hoping that we can see if there's a way to add to your sponsorship, because I have friends who are engineers that work in the medical device industry, and they love to tinker with stuff. They love to be able to refurbish chairs that come in. Maybe we can get something like that worked out. But I want to thank both of you. David, thank you so much. Andrew, thank you so much for allowing this interview, for allowing me to be able to do something on behalf of Triumph, to go across America and just blah, 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 and do stuff like this. So
it's also going to be a lot of pedaling. Let's not forget those steps.
So there you have it, folks. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure you subscribe and like, share with friends, and definitely go down to triumph.org and take a good look at them. All right, we'll see you next time.